Hello everyone. I worked under Professor Aditya Bandopadhyay for my bachelor thesis project, which deals with the impact of stretching enhanced mixing and coalescence on reactivity in mixing limited reactive flows. Our work deals with quantifying how the spatial heterogeneity in an underlying flow field controls the mixing of a scalar and what implications this has for reaction rates in a reactive flow system. This problem of reactive transport has typically been solved numerically since the governing equations are highly nonlinear in an Eulerian framework. However, analytical solutions are desired when we wish to understand the role played by various transport and reaction parameters. Until date, almost all analytical solutions of species transport problems involve the idea of a component, which is a linear combination of the species which remains conserved during transport, and we also make use of this tool. The effect of mixing on reaction rates has been studied experimentally, and a very popular area of study is precipitation of minerals at the interface of saltwater and freshwater. However, predicting mixing rates and their impact on reactivity remains a challenge, particularly when there is aggregation between several parts of the mixing interface, leading to a coalescence regime. Understanding the dependence of upscaled reactivity on the mixing rate and on the coalescence dynamics is important since many biogeochemical processes are controlled by mixing. For our analysis, we consider two prototypical flow fields, the linear shear and the Rankine vortex. In both flows, material lines elongate linearly in time, but the difference between the two lies in the fact that the phenomenon of coalescence is observed only in the Rankine vortex, as you can see in the figure below. Our approach is as follows. We employ a lamellar framework called the Rans stretch model, which I will explain in a subsequent slide, in order to obtain a closed form solution of the transport problem. We substitute this solution in the chemical relation equations governing our system to obtain expressions for reactivity and mass of product formed. Finally, for a Rankine vortex, we compare the integrated reactivity obtained from a model which accounts for coalescence and one which does not, in order to highlight the impact of coalescence on reaction kinetics. We study these flow models since they are used to represent common flow scenarios such as turbulent vortices, tornadoes, and mesocyclones. Over here, we illustrate the evolution of the strip of tracer in a flow field Vx equal to y and Vy equal to 0, which is a simple linear shear. This flow field causes a thinning of the strip, which simultaneously increases the concentration gradient transverse to the strip, thereby inducing a diffusive flux which increases the strip width. In the initial stages of the vortex wrapping around its center, the competing processes of striation thinning and diffusion broadening result in a net reduction in the strip width, since shear is the dominant mechanism governing the evolution of the material, and this can be seen in the initial stages in the figure on the right. At a certain stage of the mixing process, the rate of compression of the strip balances the rate of increase in thickness due to diffusion, and this time is known as the mixing time, which has been pointed out very clearly in the figure on the right. So beyond the mixing time, the rate of compression is not enough to balance the broadening due to diffusion, and the strip width increases as square root of t. So let's look at the consequences of such a deformation protocol on mixing rates and reactivity. Our chemical system is a heterogeneous reaction where two aqueous species are in equilibrium with a precipitate. We assume that the stoichiometric coefficients are 1 and the equilibrium constant is independent of space and time. Due to the large transport times in groundwater flows, the chemical reactions during solute transport in such systems are assumed to be of the sufficiently fast reversible type such that locally chemical equilibrium equations are valid everywhere in the domain. The assumption of fast reactions implies that the characteristic timescale for the reaction is several orders of magnitude larger than that of any transport process, which will alter the concentration of the solute. So such a system is called mixing limited, since the driving force for chemical reactions is the disequilibrium induced due to mixing. So we approach this problem using the Rand stretch model, which says that the frame of reference be fixed on the material tracer being advected with the flow, which can be seen in the schematic at the top of the page. And the fundamental premise of this method is that concentration gradients normal to the strip are much larger than those along the strip. Hence, diffusion reaction is essentially restricted to the direction locally normal to the strip. We also warp the time so that time is counted in units of diffusion time, and this allows us to significantly reduce the complexity of the governing equations. And using the concept of a component, which in our system is equal to A minus B, we get a simple diffusion equation which can be solved to yield a closed form solution. And this is the solution that we use in our study of the transport of a conservative scalar. Under the assumption of a mixing limited reaction, the chemical relation equation takes the form of the chemical equilibrium equation AB equals to equilibrium constant, and the concentrations of A and B can be expressed in terms of the conservative component as shown in this slide. Now, for a solitary strip, we look at the evolution of the reactant concentrations towards equilibrium in the figure, and from the density of the markers we can see that initially the concentration of A evolves at an increasing rate and then at a decreasing rate. This is an indicator of the driving force for the reaction, which is the reactivity, and there is a qualitative relation between reactivity and concentration gradients, since both peak at the same time, which is the mixing time. So can we quantify the relationship between reactivity and concentration gradients? The answer is yes, and we will see that it is precisely the RANS framework which facilitates analytical tractability of this problem. So the expression for the reactant concentrations in the previous slide can be substituted in their governing equations to get the following equation for the rate of product formation, which clearly highlights the explicit dependence of the reactivity on the mixing rate. As time progresses, we see that instead of the concentration gradients attenuating by diffusion immediately from the initial profile, there is first an increase in the normal concentration gradient caused by compression of the strip. The important consequence of the fluid deformation dynamics on a reaction is that the heterogeneity in the flow leads to mixing and reactive behavior, which is very different from what is observed in a homogeneous flow field. So this fact that the maximum reactivity does not correspond to the initial time but to the mixing time also holds interesting applications for the region in which the maximum mass would be expected to be precipitated. This formulation may now be used to study the reactivity integrated over the spatial coordinates. We have derived precise expressions for how the upscaled reactivity scales with Peclet number in different time limits, and this can be seen in the figure on the left. This analysis is useful when it is important to have knowledge of the rate of formation and the mass of precipitate formed at any given amount of time. It is observed that the mass of precipitate formed initially increases and then saturates. As per the analytical solution for the local mass, the initial time growth of the mass is expected to be proportional to time, which is indeed seen in the figure. Beyond this stage, indicated accurately by the mixing time, which are the black markers, there is a drastic decay in the reactivity, and this is reflected in the saturation of the precipitate mass. We turn to the Rankine vortex, where we identify a key signature of coalescence as the difference between the numerical PDF, which accounts for coalescence, and the analytical PDF, which is based on the independent lamellar model, which does not account for coalescence. And as we can see in the figure on the bottom left hand corner of the page, the coalescence phenomenon actually causes the PDF, the real PDF, to peak at higher concentrations. And on the right hand side of the page, we see another heuristic for calculating the onset of coalescence, where we compute the cross correlation function of the analytical and numerical PDF. So at the initial mixing stage, when the two PDFs overlap, because there is no coalescence, the cross correlation function peaks at 0, but as coalescence sets in, the peak of the cross correlation function shifts to positive values. So finally, we look at the effect of coalescence on reactivity for a Rankine vortex. In the figure on the left, the integrated reactivity from the independent lamellar model is compared to that obtained from the numerical reconstruction using the diffusive strip method. So the independent lamellar model says that the strips which constitute the material line evolve independently of each other. So there is no coalescence, there is no material overlap, whereas the diffusive strip method does account for coalescence, which is realistic. So we see that the reactivity in the presence of coalescence, or equivalently in the absence of discrete lamellar structures, is less than that in the absence of coalescence, and this is something that one should expect, since the onset of coalescence smothers concentration gradients, which in turn reduce the reactivity. And in the figure on the right, we observe the precipitate mass to asymptotically reach the value predicted by a theory on slide 8, irrespective of the Peclet number. In conclusion, we have shown how fluid deformation significantly enhances reactivity than that for a homogeneous flow. We've analyzed how upscaled reactivity scales with Peclet number in different stages of the stirring protocol, and also how the mass of precipitate is independent of the Peclet number, but the approach towards the asymptote is governed by the Peclet number. A key signature of coalescence during scalar mixing has been identified from the probability density function of the concentration. And very importantly, we have highlighted the impact of coalescence on reaction kinetics, where the smothering of concentration gradients due to the onset of coalescence is shown to decrease the upscaled reactivity. We hope that this work improves our fundamental understanding of dispersion in a vortex and that of mixing limited reactive flows, and these ideas will subsequently build the foundations for studying reactive flows in the subsurface.